Pigeonholing. This is like the topic that I always hear a lot of people have questions on, because when they first start off with technology consulting, they feel like they're either pigeonholing themselves either in the field that they're going for the career that they want to pursue. So first off, I'm going to start off with like, what is pigeonholing in the first place, just because it could seem like a weird word if you're not familiar with it. And pigeonholing really means that you're stuck in whatever you're doing, and you're maybe like when you try to go for something else, that's all they know you for. So an example could be like, I am a Workday financials consultant at Accenture, and currently I might be pigeonholing myself into Workday. And if you haven't seen my video over here, like you'll know that like from my 2022 goals, one of the things I want to do is actually pivot into product management. So how does it exactly look like? So I've had to actually kind of feel this myself, because before I thought like I do want to be in technology for a very long time, but how long? Because in consulting, I thought I could actually try whatever I wanted, but unfortunately, when I first started at Accenture, I just got pigeonholed into Workday financials. But I've had a great experience, and only recently have I actually thought about like, okay, maybe I should go back into product management, because when I first started at consulting, I was thinking about the two of them, either in technology consulting or product management. I've done internships in both, and I thought like, well, the first job out of Accenture, the first job out of college, probably technology consulting is the best fit. And then later on, I would do product management at a tech company. So specifically, when it comes to pigeonholing, I would say that a lot of times the people that I see, and actually like here's a poll that I set up in the technology consulting community Facebook group. Definitely check out the link below if you want to actually join the community. And it looks like majority of people are actually interested in going to strategy or management consulting, or a big tech company or some kind of startup after technology consulting, which is definitely an easy and logical way to think about it. But now, how easy is it going to get into that? So specifically with strategy and management consulting, actually was in a Clubhouse session over like last summer in 2021 or maybe 2020. I don't even remember anymore. But it was actually in a Clubhouse session with Firm Learning, Heinrich Roosh. And during that session, I was like, how hard is it for someone in technology consulting to go into strategy or management consulting at like MBB or something like that, McKinsey, Bain, or BCG? So it actually is pretty hard. Depends on your role though, I would say. Like for management consulting, could be an easy fit if you're going to like either you're specializing in an industry within technology, or that you're a functional consultant, or you're doing more of like a tech strategy kind of role within technology. Depends on how you define technology consulting, to be honest. But I would say that specifically when it comes to those, it could be hard because you do need to get an MBA if you're coming from a technical background like software engineering or data engineering or cloud engineering. Anything where you're like coding or doing something very technical could be very hard to move into strategy or management consulting. But I would say that if you come from a functional or business side of technology, it could be easier to get into management consulting and then eventually strategy consulting. But if you're trying to go from MBB, both will be hard no matter what. You're going to probably have to eventually go for like a tech strategy role and then go from there. And even so, like depending on the companies you're going for, the way they even organize is different. Like maybe strategy and management consulting is the same. At least at Accenture, it's pretty much the same. But if you were to go to another firm like EY, like you have EY Parthenon, and then you have EY, and then you have Deloitte, and you have Deloitte Consulting. So it really depends on how you want to go for it. It's really good to be able to network and see how exactly has it been for them. So not to mention, now we're going to go into tech. So as I mentioned before in that poll, people also said they want to go into more like a tech company or a startup. And that's also like something that I've been interested in doing as well. So you have to be careful about your specialty though, because for example, even though I got put into Workday, like what if I want to do Salesforce, or what if I want to do SAP, or maybe I don't even want to be tied to a software as a service or platform as a service. I just want to do my own thing like product management. So you may have struggles from there, just because they're going to be like, why are you leaving in the first place? Like technically you could do it. Like for example, coding. If you're doing coding under Workday, you could technically do coding under Salesforce. So not all roles or not all responsibilities are treated the same, because for coding specifically, it's going to be similar to like you're learning Korean and you're learning Chinese. They're both different languages. They're just the same way of approaching it, of learning a language or being disciplined in that way. So it's still pretty similar. Also, even learning an instrument, still similar. But I would say that when it comes to actually like very vastly different skill sets, that's where it may be different. So maybe you're going from tech strategy, you're going to product management. Is not necessarily the most tied, but if you're coming from functional consulting, you're working more on the technical side, but you're also on the business side, it actually could be a really good avenue into product management. And that's actually where I noticed that it has been a pretty good avenue. So it does depend on what you're trying to do moving forward. A lot of people I know, like they are kind of scared of going into Oracle and SAP or whatever they end up going for, and think that that's all they're going to be doing. But let's think about it this way. So even though we're tied to a software, our main job is really learning. So we're learning new software, we're learning with the client, we're learning as a job in consulting. So a lot of times you can learn and adapt easily and be able to bring that over. You just need to be able to build your story properly when it comes to actually building your application, your resume, or you're trying to do a transfer. Talk about like what is the product management like experiences and skills of what your current job, or what's your current experience in management consulting with your current role. Like even though maybe functional consulting is not truly management consulting, I am working with them in business process optimization and making sure that their process is even optimized in the first place. It's not even related to tech. This is just talking to them about their process, change management even. So think about it in that kind of perspective and you can kind of see what you could do. So getting into a tech company like Salesforce after you just came from Workday, you may have to pivot in terms like, oh, now I have experience with software as a service. And some of the requirements out there do show like, oh, experience in software as a service. But sometimes maybe like, oh, we want experience in CRM, but you don't have experience in CRM. How do I get that experience? So you do have to potentially do a lot of work outside of Accenture or outside of your consulting work to be able to get that experience. So maybe some training that's available or certifications. I do have a friend that actually left Workday to be able to go into AWS, and he did a lot of training or certifications outside of Accenture. So think about it that way. Like if you really want to do it, you can. You won't be completely tied to it, but it really is harder because sometimes a lot of the firms may be stringent about their funding with like paying for your training on that, or maybe they just want you to stay in this very strategic area. Workday could be one of those strategic areas, but then you have to think about it too. Like, why would I go to an area like Oracle? Oracle technically is not as big as Workday nowadays when it comes to what clients want, just because Workday is in the cloud, unless you do something like Oracle Cloud, something like that. But you also have to kind of think about like, once a software or technology kind of basically is done, like so are you. So you have to constantly relearn, but you're not completely done. You're learning how to learn. So that's what you'd be doing. Now, if you're going for like a non-tech, non-consulting role, that could be a little bit difficult, but that's where networking comes in. Maybe you didn't actually know what the role really is like, and because of that, you can learn what's transferable and what you can do. And maybe a referral would help, or maybe just doing a lot of training outside of your job can help. So for example, pro bono consulting, maybe you want to go into the CRM space, but you're coming from an ERP space. So by the way, to let you know what that means, ERP means enterprise resource planning, which is basically something that like a business would use to be able to power the business. And they have CRM, which is customer relationship management, which is Salesforce. Think about it as like you go to a call center and then they have like you on the database. That's CRM. So that's an example of what you can do to network and see what you need to do, because a lot of soft skills you probably have shared unless they're looking for something concrete. Like if you're an engineer and they're looking for experience working with a client, you maybe not have worked with engineers that much. Maybe you worked with the functional consultants or worked with the management consultants that provided that information to you, or the product managers. So you probably have not really worked with that much with the actual client or the customer or the user base. So think about it that way. I don't think it's completely bygones be bygones, but you have to kind of think about it in terms of where do you want to head over. And I know a lot of people who are actually asking this question are just like, if I do this role, will I get my foot in the door, or would I pigeonhole myself to what I need to do? But they don't know what they want to do. But if you think about it this way, technology consulting or consulting in general is like you're learning how to learn, you're getting exposure. I think like a big thing to think about it though is like technology versus business, or versus non-technology or business. If you have an idea what you want to do, if you're in technology consulting and you want to be in tech, you're a good place. You want to do management consulting, you want to go into tech, you could still do it. You might need to do some side projects to show you have that technical capacity, but going the other way around, technology consulting going to management consulting or strategy consulting, or specifically strategy consulting, is going to be difficult. You may need an MBA, or because it may be hard other than if you did like strategy consulting. And again, it depends. Are you functional consultant? Are you technical consultant? But if you want to go into management consulting, you could technically go in as a functional consultant, like pivot through technical and functional, and then go into management consulting. They're somewhat related, not exactly, but you can still have a easier transition. So I wouldn't say that you're pigeonholing yourself, because it is possible, but it is something to think about too, as to like how much harder would it be to do this. Because if you have like two options you're thinking about, like technology consulting versus like business analyst, and you want to do like strategy consulting, that's going to be difficult, because technically you have the business know-how, but then you also have the consulting experience. So That's something where if you have any questions like that, leave me in the comments down below. I can probably help you out. But to be honest, the best way is just to network with people who are in the role you want to go to and say like, hey, how is it exactly like for you? Do you feel like it's harder to go in from business analyst or coming in from like a technology consulting role to be able to do management or strategy consulting? So think about it that way and see from there, because sometimes some firms care more about the consulting experience and some firms care about the business know-how. But for most, it's really just dependent on you as an individual. What's your drive and what are you willing to learn? Honestly, just let me know down below and see you guys next time. Bye.